Welcome to FM Thoughts, the podcast about thoughts on Football Manager, and it's been a little while. We had a little bit of a break after Season 1. This is Season 2. There's already a few brilliant episodes lined up for you to listen to, so I hope you enjoy it. But without further ado, let's listen to our first guest of Season 2. Today I have a very special guest. I have the database maestro, the magician of Sweden, everyone's favourite doctor, the magnificent, the marvellous MikaelinhoFM. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh wow, you got me blushing over here. Thanks a lot for having me. It'll be loads of fun talking about me and myself.
Yes, you everyone's favourite topic. You. We've been trying to set this up for a long time. We've kind of had a few people saying, "What are you going to get Mikaelinho on the podcast?" and other people saying, "Oh, we'd really love a podcast about the FM editor." So that's what we're here to talk about today. Do you think we can do it?
Absolutely.
Good. I guess for those people who maybe have just played Football Manager, we're not talking about the in-game editor. We're talking about the pre-game editor, mostly. Do you want to kind of explain what that is?
Well, it is a powerful but slightly wonky tool that helps you edit most things that are in the game, but before you actually start a save. Is that a decent way of putting it? You can create your own team. You can change your favourite team's stadium capacity from 4K to 87K if you want to. You can make a left-footed player right-footed, etc. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, it really is like a full range of stuff, isn't it? That you can kind of just slightly increase the facilities of a team or change the attributes of a player, all the way up to some of the more ambitious stuff that you've tried, like creating entirely new countries, entirely new league systems, completely reinventing league systems. Those take a little bit of time, though, don't they?
They do. They very much do. But I do think it's a labour of love, and there are more people than me and more talented people than me who make some very cool databases, sort of rearrange league systems, or create entirely new nations, or do these sort of what-if scenarios, which are fun if you like to play the game that way.
It's very much on that edge of the sort of not so much the realism, but like the seeing this as a sandbox, seeing this as a tool to tell stories and to look at it differently, which does appeal to some people maybe who aren't hugely into the, aren't super here to replicate what they're seeing in real life, or maybe have played the game for a long time and looking for something a bit different. I think you're being very humble, though. I think that you're right. You're not the only one. There are people out there. Quite a few people who've made pretty famous kind of databases, either completely building new league systems for all of North America, or whatever, or creating fictional countries. But I would say you're definitely up there with people who are famous for creating completely fabulous creations. There's certainly you had quite a lot of traction with Paradiso a couple of FMs ago, and before that it was Bordova, was it?
Yeah. Exactly. Those are the two biggest database projects, I'd say. In a sense, they were very much alike in the way that they were two made-up nations. But in another sense, they were very much different, because the first one, Bordavia, it just took off all of a sudden. I was supposed to create a little database as a backdrop for the main save I was doing. I think it was for FM21, if I'm not mistaken. And then it kind of got traction, and people really caught on the idea. Someone suggested that I'd make sort of an entire league, and then loads of people wanted to contribute with fun sort of club ideas, and someone started creating kits, another one started making logos, and all of a sudden there weren't 3 or 4 or 5 people doing it. It was 20, 30, 40, and one league grew into a complete league system, and all of a sudden the entire save was just all about creating a completely made up communist former Soviet nation. So that was Bordavia, but for Paradiso it was much more elaborate. I had an idea where I kind of wanted to replicate the journey I did with Bordavia, but with more structure and sort of more preparation. So this time I tried to actively get people involved even before I started it, and it turned into probably the most fun project or save I've ever done with him.
I was involved a bit in that, and it was really interesting. It's so difficult to describe what it is. I think when we were speaking about it a while ago, I tried to think maybe the best way to describe it is like when you see the Football Manager experiments on YouTube, but it's interactive. You were finding ways for people to, people were submitting their teams, but then people were, you were playing little mini games with them to increase their facilities or not, or kind of people were having to spin narratives around why their team existed, and it was a real journey.
Yeah, it was. It was, and it had sort of several stages, like you say. It started off just getting people involved that wanted to contribute with a team of their own, and then you had the chance of creating a backstory, create a logo, kits, or there were other people who were willing to do it for you if you didn't want to, or felt like you didn't have the ability. And then you were also able to create players, name them, and make them better by spinning a wheel. So it was loads of fun, and eventually it actually turned into a playable database, which I had loads of fun with too.
It's such a wonderful database. It's so well designed. I think my only regret with Paradiso is that more people didn't get a chance to experience that database, because it's honestly one of the best things. It's such a good thing. I mean, if you are one of these people who's not hung up on playing on the absolute latest version of Football Manager, do just type in Football Manager Paradiso into Google and check it out, because I mean, you even went to the extent of sort of building a website for the local media, and with a map of the country and a Wikipedia about, so these aren't just Bob's football club. People had to ground them in the community. What language are they speaking? What's their history? What island are they going to be on? What city? What's the city's economy? Like, it has a depth that I think makes it so much richer than just I've built this league system. It was a world that you were building, really.
Yeah, very much so. I'd say I wasn't building it. It was very much a joint venture, community-based thing where loads of people got involved, and I really think that many people felt involved too, that they actually contributed, which they very much did. But I do think you are right, saying that we had a level of detail that many databases don't have, I think, and that was the strength of it. I've said it before when I try to describe what I've done, is that I like to create the, should we call it, illusion of realism in a setting that isn't realistic at all. I mean, this is a completely made up Caribbean nation that doesn't actually exist. But if you just load up the database and get into it, then it would very much feel as if it was real.
Do you want to give us a kind of story of if someone is thinking, okay, well, you've sold the idea of Paradiso, you've given us the name of it, but what actually is it? What is the story? Imagine Paradiso is real. What is it?
Well, the story basically is that this is an island, a Caribbean island nation, a former colony like most of them, and they've never had organised football. They've had cricket, and only cricket. But as the sort of, what should we call it, colonial remnants, as they are wiped away by, well, it kind of turns into a banana republic with their own sort of strengths and weaknesses, poverty, corruption, but still a very rich sort of cultural life, and a strong sense and a strong pride in the community. Somewhere there, football started evolving, moving from being a game played by kids or played on the beaches to an actual league system. And the leader, the ruler of the nation, decides that he wants to capitalize on this by creating a league system. So as you see now, this isn't real at all, but it's got a certain touch of realism, and we've borrowed and stolen many stories and many narratives from other nations, other histories.
Yeah. And I guess because you were streaming this on Twitch and you had an international audience, you kind of ended up settling on this idea of, well, okay, we've got some Spanish immigrants in this town, and then we've got, I think originally it was Spanish and British, but then you had people from the Netherlands that were interested, and you're like, you know what, we can say this town was settled by Dutch, and then the teams from there can have a Dutch flavour and kind of really, really allow as you say, people to kind of come in and take it in the direction that they want to.
Exactly. It was a very easy way to get more people involved. So give enough of a backstory or enough of a framework for them to understand where we were going, but also allow enough creative freedom for everyone to make something that they were proud of and that they enjoyed. So, for example, a Dutch-inspired island.
When you're bringing a lot of people into a project like that, you get a lot of ideas, you get a lot of engagement, you get a lot of positivity. Did you ever feel like there was almost too many people, or did it become a bit like wrangling lots of different agendas, or did you feel like you created a good way of? I guess I'm trying to ask. If I was doing it, I would feel a little bit precious at some points, or I'd be like, "Yes, we've done that stage. You've missed the cutoff. Stop pestering me." Or did it ever become a bit of a chore, or was it always a joy?
Most of all, it was a joy, and I'm still very proud and happy about the end result. But I understand where you're going with the question, and I must say that I felt a bit of what you're asking about. I did feel like I had to balance getting people involved and staying true to what I wanted to do. I felt at one point as if I was sort of moving away from where I actually wanted to go with it, just to please pretty much everyone who came in and wanted to participate. And at that stage, I started feeling like this wasn't really fun anymore. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me. So I just decided to move it back to what I enjoyed. And if that would result in a couple of people then sort of enjoying it less, then so be it. Because if this database was going to be created, then I would need to have fun all the way until the end.
I imagine finishing such a mammoth project like that, you get satisfaction at the end of finishing it, but you're not getting paid at the end. It's not a job, so you got to enjoy that process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think enjoying the process is absolutely pivotal if you're gonna create anything that sort of takes a while to get done. But then I've also massively enjoyed everyone, including yourself, who actually played the database and had fun with it. That was maybe the ultimate payoff, for what you should call it. But one of the few regrets I have with that database is that it might have just taken a little bit too long to get it finished, because I felt like maybe towards the end we lost a little bit of traction, a little bit of interest, which made the database not reach as many people as it might have if it would have been finished earlier. But then again, then it would have been smaller and maybe not the fabulous creation it actually turned into.
It's really difficult, isn't it? And one of the things I'm sure we're going to touch on later in this interview, because we have been collaborating on a project of similar to this recently, but is that temptation of what do you add in, knowing what's going to make this better and what's going to set us back weeks and months. And there's a phrase that can't remember where I've got it from now. I've used it so often with so many people, but this sort of "don't let perfect be the enemy of good" is I think a really great phrase, where it's sort of reminding you that, okay, yes, we can add another 17 regional youth cups, but maybe we shouldn't. Maybe it's okay as it is. And I remember we went through that a lot with Paradiso, where you were sort of trying to get regional island cups, and was it the youth leagues that then all of a sudden broke everything, and there was a few curse words said at the editor when that happened?
Yeah, there were more than a few curse words being said, and I was absolutely terrified when in the youth league structure all of a sudden broke the entire league structure in a way that I could never have foreseen. And that might be the biggest challenge with the editor. It isn't exactly user friendly, and it isn't exactly straightforward. So if you make the wrong turn somewhere in the process, then you might end up in a completely wrong place.
It's a really complicated beast. I guess we should, I've alluded to it, we should talk about it a little bit. Me and you collaborated on making Yorkshire as a nation, which really ballooned into quite a big project. But as part of that, I was trying a little bit to dip into the editor and not just rely on you doing it all. And oh my word, like, it is an enigma, really. I mean, I don't come from a coding background or anything like that. Did a little bit of computing at school, but it's so built on rules, and the game, I guess, is trying to do things. You tell it to do stuff and it tries to do it, but particularly with all of the scheduling and yeah, you sort of say, right, add these cups in, and then it's cross your fingers, and the game does some calculations and it goes, yes, we can get these cups to work. And then you're like, well, add some more cups in, and then the game does some calculations and it goes, oh, we can't do those cups because those games are clashing or whatever. Although often it doesn't tell you we can't do those cups because those games are clashing. It just sort of crashes. and then you have to try and work out what the problem is and say, well, maybe if we move these cups to be later in the year, does that work? Nope. Oh wait, no, this is broken. And then yeah, wow, it's very much the old-fashioned trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And there are basically two layers. You've got the basic rules and the advanced rules. And in the basic rules, which is the default setup, you cannot really break anything. But once you go into the advanced rules, one change could lead to loads of other stuff that you cannot foresee. And sometimes the editor tells you what's wrong, and sometimes it only tells you that something's wrong. And then it's like finding a needle in a haystack, which could be a very frustrating process because you know that something's broken and you can't get any further, but you really don't know what. And then you get into this trial and error thing where you can spend hours trying different things based on logic or based on something completely different. And every once in a while you manage to solve the issue, and on other occasions you don't get anywhere. And I think that was where we were at certain points with the Yorkshire database, which was loads of fun too, but we had some moments where it felt like we couldn't get any further until we all of a sudden did.
It felt like we were so close to getting some things in place, but I also think we were. I still don't know how pushy I was with some of this stuff, but we were sort of like, what if we do this? And then you're like, yes, that's doable, and then you do it, and then it just doesn't quite work, and you're like, should we give up on the idea? But we're so close, and then you spend ages trying to get it to work. I mean, I've been asked a lot of questions, which is, how much time have I and you put into the Yorkshire database? And I'm not sure how to answer that, but I mean, do you have off the top of your head a rough estimation of how many hours you put into Paradiso, into Budovia, into Yorkshire, like each one of them? How many hours do you think off the top of your head you must have spent?
I know that I spent hundreds of hours on the Yorkshire database, and that means that I've probably spent at least 1,000 hours on Paradiso. I know that for a while in the process I sort of spent 10 or 12 hours a day doing it for a period, so it quickly amounts to loads of hours, especially when you get stuck, as we did at certain points. When you just sort of move on and add one thing to another and see the creation sort of unfold before you, then it's loads of fun. But when you get to grinding halt, then it's not that much fun, but it's very time consuming.
I mean, someone might be listening to this and they're thinking, 1,000 hours? Why? Do you have an answer? Because as I alluded to, you were saying, I'm not the only one, but there are that many of you with good reason. Why?
I'm not sure if I have a good question, a good answer, because I'm not completely sure myself as to why. I think it was very much the sense of creating something together with others, both Budovia and Paradiso, and now the Yorkshire database together with you. I do massively enjoy the process of creating together with others, seeing your idea actually come to life. If I was a Minecraft player, I think it's kind of similar to that process. I think I pretty much just watched the streamers play Minecraft. I never actually played it myself, but I do think it caters to very much of the same creative spirit or idea that you want to turn into something that you can actually see or almost touch.
I think that, it's quite interesting that, again, what makes a big difference between some of the stuff and again, you're not alone in doing that side of it, but again, it really adds a layer of depth, is when you load up one of these databases that have been created, and you pull them from the pre-game editor, which is very clunky and very console-esque, very kind of old, like in the traditional sense of a console window, and at times, and all, dated, and you pull it through into the main game, and you load up all the graphics packs that people have made, the kits, the faces, the stadiums, the logos, and you pull that all through. There is something addictively magical about that I mean, as I say, like, just having a tiny bit of involvement in it, I can see how you could get hooked on that you turn this thing, and then you press some buttons, and then, oh my god, it's there, and it looks as good as the Bundesliga or as good as the Premier League, and it's in Football Manager. Like, there must be a little bit of a what's the word? Endorphins, I guess, maybe from when you do that.
Absolutely, it's a strong sense of pride, sort of seeing as it comes to life when you move it from the editor to the actual game and just see it unfold. But that's just one part of it for me. I really, really enjoy the actual process too. I don't know if you remember, but for Paradiso, I think it took months before I loaded it up in the game for the first time to see if it actually worked. I spent months in the editor without even trying to see if I could get it to work as an actual game file.
Yeah, I do remember. You were almost like holding it off. It was like anticipation before Christmas to loading it in to the main game. Because I guess, yeah, you do still see that little change number slowly ticks up, doesn't it, in terms of what you've changed, and you can still see. I mean, I know some people, I think it was Zealand, when as soon as the main game came out, he immediately opened up the editor to see because you see everything in there. You see all of the hidden attributes of all the players, you see all of the conditions of the stadiums, you see the reputations, you see the game importance in all the leagues. So in of itself, it is an interesting tool to poke around in, isn't it?
Absolutely, very much so. I really enjoy it in all its clunkiness.
You've alluded to the clunkiness. Is it? I mean, people obviously moan about draft mode a little bit. We've had a bit of that on the podcast. It is maybe not the most slick and efficient piece of software, really, is it?
No, I referred to it on many occasions as a fickle mistress. You sometimes when you're kind to it, it's kind to you, but then sometimes it's absolutely cruel in the most horrific way, and you're struggling to realize what you've actually done wrong. It takes loads of practice, I'd say, and I learned a lot as I've been in there and trying stuff, breaking stuff, etc.
Can you give an example of some of the things that have caused you headaches?
Well, I mean, if we talk about league structure, whenever you add a layer of complexity, for example, we could talk promotion relegation. Whenever you add a layer of complexity, the number of things that could go wrong, they just exponentially increase. If we take the simple example, we say that we create a two-tiered league system with standard promotion and relegation. The bottom two teams from the top tier, they go down, and the top two teams from the second tier, they go up. That's fairly easy to do. But then maybe you'd like, I don't know, a pro-rel playoff. That doesn't add one thing that could break. That adds 10 things that you need to take into consideration. And if you also decide that you'd like to have, I don't know, specific squad registration rules or specific transfer window stuff, then all of that adds to it too. Very quickly, there are numerous things that you could break just by changing one parameter. So then you could sort of break three others. So it's a very delicate balance of how much you want to do without breaking anything.
It's not intuitive at all at times. I remember when we were looking at fixing some of the rules, and I was like, oh, maybe I could do this, and it's like, no, it's not in the league rules, it's in the nation rules under league rules, not in the rules under the league under the rules. Just like, it's okay, this is not the best folder system that you're working with.
Exactly. And sometimes, like I said, it points you in the right direction, but sometimes it just leaves you without any good direction of what you need to fix. But then again, sometimes it is actually based on logic. You've just missed inputting a parameter that means that the editor cannot process all the data in sort of the right order, or get it from point A to point B. But in other cases, it completely defies logic and works in a very backwards way that's impossible to actually logically sort of think out.
I mean, I'm doing a bad job at plugging my own database that we worked on together, the Yorkshire one, but I think it's a great example because it's a fairly straightforward concept. We've said, right, what if Yorkshire's a country? I remember I approached you and said, well, maybe we can just add Yorkshire nationality to some players. And you said, what about a league system and all of this?
Yeah.
Slowly built a league system, and then we were like, oh, well, maybe we do some regional cups and that, and then I guess in that regard, I mean, I've just pulled up the editor file. We're on 12,370 changes to the game. So that's 12,370 things that have been changed versus the game when you get it out of the box. And in some ways, yeah, there is sympathy with it when it, you know, we're saying, oh, it's always going wrong, but then it kind of is going to go wrong, because if you think about it, if you try and introduce a new cup, so we tried to say, well, let's do some regional cups that happen towards the end of the season and have a league cup earlier in the season, how is that going to affect the fixture congestion in the league? How are the fixtures going to get arranged if there's also European fixtures in there? What does that do to the finances of the clubs in terms of travel expenses, in terms of sponsorship, in terms of, you know, season tickets they're selling? Football Manager is a very complicated game, and you are, I guess, unscrewing the back of it and starting to move wires around. It's possibly no surprise that it crashes sometimes and doesn't do what you want it to do.
Absolutely, and that's I touched on it a little bit when I talked about the basic rules compared to the advanced rules, and that is very much a thing. The more you try to fiddle with the actual framework of it, the easier it is for it to break. If you just do stuff the way the editor wants you to, then it's fairly easy. But as soon as you want to do things in a slightly different way, then you start to potentially have stuff go wrong. But as you said, that we started, I don't know, with a kind of modest idea and modest vision of what we wanted with the Yorkshire database. It actually turned into something beautiful as well, I think. And if you haven't tried it, then I really urge you to give it a go. What if Yorkshire was a nation, very much in the same sense as Wales have their own league system? We've got a league system of our own in Yorkshire, with some clubs left in the English league system and others in a Yorkshire league system, which I think was loads of fun. And just to finish my train of thought here while I ramble on, even though we started adding things as we went, that was maybe the most fun thing of the process, sort of feeling as it grows, using your creative juices to make it bigger, better, quirkier, more fun to play. But that's also the most difficult thing about it, when you add things afterwards. The more you have a set plan as you start working with the editor, the easier it is to do things in an order that the editor actually accepts. Yeah. So if you first do sort of point A, then you move to point B and point C and point D, then it's fairly easy to get the editor to understand that, and it's also kind of easy to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. Then you just go back one step. But when you sort of do step A, step B, step C, go back to step B, then step D, step E, go back to step B again and change a little bit, and then step C, then all of a sudden you're in a minefield.
Some of the feedback that we had in the middle of the project, or even now that it's done, is people are saying things like, you should have done regional lower leagues. Well, we've done the league structure, so that would be going back to step A. Or people saying, I'm very happy to argue with people about this because I like it personally, and we made that decision at the start and I'm sticking to it. But people saying, oh, I don't like that some of the regens come through with Scandinavian names, and it's like, yeah, that can't be changed, because like that's because we just, for a bit of under the hood and kind of lifting the curtain, we started with Faroe Islands and cloned their league system and changed the names and changed the teams in the system, and I would say that's a fairly beginner's thing that you can do quite easily in the pre-game editor. But then we started thinking, well, should we add some local cups in? Should we create a trophy that the English Yorkshire teams can come in? How do we get Yorkshire intakes? We started to balloon on that. But that's a great example, isn't it, of, well, we can't go back to step A and change that because the whole thing is built on that. We've chosen our template nation. And I think that's what you did with Paradiso as well, isn't it? You chose a template nation. Frank?
Absolutely. I think it was Turks or Caicos or something like that we changed into Paradiso for that database, and now it was the Faroe Islands, and that is, at least for me, maybe there is a workaround, but that's the first step for me when creating a new nation in the database, to take an existing nation and pretty much wipe it and then change the name of it. And some things are hard-coded and some things cannot even be changed in the editor. For one example, it's the names of new gens coming through. So even though we changed the name Faroe Islands to Yorkshire, it's still going to have Faroese names, the new gens. You could fill the database with other names, and the sort of intakes will pick up some of these names, but overall there will mostly be Nordic related names for Yorkshire/Faroe Islands, just based on that. And changing that, it would probably be easier to just start completely from scratch than to actually change the nation that we picked from the beginning in the existing database.
But then the question would be, who do you obliterate in order to get your English names, and what other hidden things are in there? You could say, well, we use Canada instead, so we get more English names, but then you'll get French Quebec names coming through. You'll get American dual citizens. You could say, well, we use Ireland, but then you've deleted Ireland from the game, presumably. So yeah, it's always, in some ways, it's a little bit about compromise. But as I said to you when we started this project, that was always the vision for me. It's like the Danelaw, the Scandinavian influence on the north of England. There is a history there that I think makes the Faroe Islands a fun pick. Obviously, one that people often choose is Malta, or I've seen people use Andorra possibly as well. But yeah, picking your template nation is always an important step at the start, isn't it?
Yeah, and as long as you don't treat it as a perfect reflection of reality, instead treat it as a parallel universe, they can get away with a lot.
It's a perfect reflection of my reality. An independent Scandinavian Yorkshire. But no, I mean, yeah, it's been such a fun project. I feel like we could do another podcast all about the Yorkshire database, but in some ways there is going to be plenty of other material out there on that. So you've got this history of making databases. We've done the Yorkshire databases out in the world, but your most recent save that you're doing now on Twitch, I noticed that you were using the pre-game editor, I think, a little bit for research ahead of time, but it's not an editor project, is it? It's a playing the game as a save project.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing a sort of youth-focused challenge with Hertha Berlin from Germany, and I was going to say play around with the database with the editor. I made some slight changes to it, and I also used it to pick the club that I wanted to use for my youth challenge. So that was pretty much it. You can use the editor in that way to look at different teams, facilities, or finances, or or stadium capacities, etc., to make your pick for a save. And that's the way I went this time around.
As a more kind of accessible option, if people are just getting into using the pregame editor, you can just say, well, what I'm going to do at the start of this is, transfer embargo this team, or change the owner of this team, or give this lower league team loads of money and see if they pop up later in my save, or whatever. That there are those little tweaks you can do, or as it seemed to be, you've written some blogs about going in and looking and seeing, well, what are the facilities like, what players are being brought through at these clubs, using it for kind of scouting before you pick your save.
Absolutely, and I encourage anyone to give the editor a go. But I think it's a wise move to make small changes in the beginning just to get used to the editor and stay away from the advanced rules for as long as possible, because once you open that, it's like opening Pandora's box.
Do you foresee a big editor project, maybe even a big collaborative project in the editor in your future?
Yeah, I do. I'm not going to say that I felt burnt out after Paradiso. I did not, but I got a little bit burnt out by the next project, where I tried to create an American League system, and that's the first time I've actually not managed to finish a project, because that database completely broke down all of a sudden into a state that couldn't be fixed. And that kind of put me off, because I put in many hours into that, and many people have invested effort to create that database. But I did find love for it again now with the Yorkshire database. So I'm not ruling out another big project in the future, maybe for the next FM.
Ooh, we'll watch this space. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm hugely in awe of what you can do, and what you do for the Football Manager community more generally as well. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
No, I'm the one who should be thanking you. Thanks a million for having me. I really do appreciate this.
If people want to follow with your current save and your current content, where can they go to get
that? Twitch.tv/MikaelinhoFM. Is the place to be, or hit me up on Twitch or Twitter.
I will put the links to that in the description. But do you want to spell out Mikaelinho for people?
Yeah, lots of people have tried, but not many have succeeded. But I know how to spell it. Mikaelinho.
There you go. Mikaelinho, not Mikaelinho.
Exactly. Play your words with a Brazilian touch. Think of Ronaldinho, but Mikael instead.
I mean, it's late in the podcast to be asking this question, but is there something I should know? Is that the origin of it?
Yeah.
Of the name, yeah.
Pretty much. I think from the beginning it was some sort of made-up moniker that I used for myself, sort of daydreaming about football as a kid. Okay. And then it stuck on. And survived through the years. So now it's my grown-up alter ego.
Perfect. So the start of it has some resemblance to the real you, and then as we get more towards the end, it's that imagined kind of Ronaldinho-esque name that you are now known to hundreds of people on the internet as.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. Well, do check Mikaelinho out, and thank you so much for coming on. But that is us for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Mikaelinho FM, just one of the greats, a good chap and a good friend, I would say, of mine, and an absolute pleasure to finally nail this interview down. It's been a long time coming, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it and you enjoy this type of content, there's the whole of season 1 to listen to, and as you might be able to tell, our episodes are not often particularly tied to a date or a time, so if it's a topic that interests you, go back and have a listen. And obviously share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. That's the best way that we can grow the podcast and hopefully help share some of these thoughts around. But there's nothing for me to say other than thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you have a lovely week. Go well. We'll see you next week. Well, you'll hear me next week. Anyway, whatever. Go well.